Tulsi Gabbard, we are seeing some positive momentum happening right now. And we weren't sure yesterday, coming off the air, she was doing it live. We were watching some of it. We weren't sure. And we're still not sure. Look, it could go either way. But there was a positive move that happened.
And what we even saw yesterday was some of the Republicans that are on the Intel Committee that there were concerns about their vote to move the nomination of Tulsi Gabbard forward. And those four that really were sticking out were Senator Susan Collins from Maine, Todd Young from Indiana, Jerry Moran, and Senator John Cornyn. Now, what we are seeing, in kind of a surprise move.
Yeah, this morning.
Senator Cornyn, who's been in the Senate a long time. He is an old guard Republican, very much an establishment Republican, and kind of a moderate Republican in many aspects.
He's been on this show before.
Right.
He's a friend.
Yes.
But, like I said, old school Republican.
But for this nomination, it was one of the ones that really we were concerned about may not be a vote there to move her forward. And even his questioning during the hearing kind of put us on edge. We talked about that yesterday on the broadcast. Last night, he tweeted, late last night, Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2 provides that the president shall appoint officers with the advice and consent of the Senate. Having won the election decisively, I believe President Trump has earned the right to appoint his own cabinet, absent extraordinary circumstances. Therefore, it is my intention to consent to the appointment of Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence. So that is
can't get more direct than that.
One of the four concerning votes that were on that Intel Committee publicly saying he will support her nomination. That is a big deal. Even if he was planning on doing it, many times you don't see them publicly state it. There's been talks about the vote being held in a skiff, so no one knows who voted how.
Yeah.
And that would give cover for some of these Republicans to vote the way that was in line with President Trump. However, Senator Cornyn getting out ahead of that, saying he will vote for her. This is a big momentum shifter for Tulsi Gabbard's nomination.
Yeah, I think this is a big deal. You need to treat it that way.
This is something that I think is effective. You see what's on the surface. You see the hearings. You see the questioning, the back and forth between the nominee and the senators. But there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes as well. And when the president wants someone to be confirmed, and it's his own party that holds the majority, you know that there's a lot of internal government lobbying going on to try and move these nominees forward. And J.D. Vance, he taped a interview with Sean Hannity. It was taped, I believe, in the morning while the hearings were going on. So yesterday, and it aired last night. And Sean Hannity asked directly about the three that are the more controversial picks.
RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel.
Sure.
I think three excellent choices by the president.
I agree.
But I have every expectation that the Democrats are going to be vicious. Now, we have small majorities in the House, small majority in the Senate.
Sure. How
do you get these guys? Do you believe they'll get across the finish line? How do you help get them across the finish line?
So I do believe they're going to get across the finish line, Sean, but we're going to have to fight for each one, and we're going to have to make sure that Republicans, I think, we're different from Democrats, and in some ways I admire that Senate Republicans are a little bit more free thinking, a little bit more independent. On the other hand, the president has made his selections, and the advice and consent power of the United States Senate should not be used to block people because you have one policy disagreement on one issue. You don't get to make these decisions. President Trump gets to make these decisions, and he already has.
J.D. Vance, in that interview, said the president has made his selections. The advice and consent power of the United States Senate should not be used to block people because you have one policy disagreement on one issue. You don't get to make these decisions. President Trump gets to make these decisions, and he already has. John Cornyn, Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2 provides the president shall appoint officers with the advice and consent of the Senate. Having won the election decisively, I believe President Trump has earned the right to appoint his own cabinet, absent extraordinary circumstances. They track perfectly. So while that interview was taped during the hearings and then aired later that night, you know that J.D. Vance, former colleague of these members of Congress, these senators, because J.D. Vance very recently, no longer a senator, now vice president.
A few weeks ago.
You know that he knows how to talk to them because they call the Senate the greatest deliberative body in the world, that this is where the debate goes on. Much of that debate is behind closed doors among the members of the Senate. And you know that when a statement from a on-the-fence senator tracks very closely to what the Vice President of the United States is saying, that this pressure campaign from constituents like Whitney, from members of the ACLJ, like those of you that have already signed the petition at aclj.org/sign, and from the Vice President of the United States, is working. It is working. And that's what we need to keep up, because it's not over. This is a momentum moment. Getting a public statement from Senator Cornyn, who is largely seen as a potential no vote on Tulsi Gabbard, saying that he will vote for her confirmation out of the Intel Committee, is a huge momentum shift, but we can't let up. Yeah. Now is the time to continue.
It helps the others who are maybe on the fence to not feel alone in the situation. They're allowed now to have a little more grace and can vote to confirm Tulsi. And look, like I said, if you watch those confirmation hearings, she did a great job. If you know her background, you're sitting there going, why is this not the easiest yes I've ever seen? This is someone who has put America and American families first over and over again, has protected our country over and over again.
And just as a reminder, the Intel Committee will vote, and then that will advance the nomination out of committee to the full Senate. They can theoretically still hold a vote on someone that fails to advance out of Senate, but it is very unlikely. That would be a very different scenario. Many times, the only way that would happen is if for some reason the majority of the Senate were in the opposite party, and somehow you still try to use a parliamentary tactic to force this vote. But that's not what going to happen with this when you have the Republican majority.
I'm really encouraged to hear John Cornyn's remark. I called his office on Wednesday while I was watching him interview JFK Jr., and I said, hey, I'm watching this in real time. I'm his constituent. I would love to see him put this nominee through. And for that matter, I want him to put through Kash Patel. I want him to put through Tulsi Gabbard. Not that John Cornyn changed his mind because of me, but if enough other people called, that's something else we can do.
All of those things are very important, and I appreciate you doing that. And look, you may say, I don't know if it was me that did it. You know what? Collectively, it certainly was. You're part of it, for sure. So know that we really appreciate that. I'm sure Tulsi appreciates that. But even as an ACLJ champion, know how much that we appreciate your support. Will, because this moment in time is a bit different in terms of the confirmation hearings. Because what they're doing is, yes, should President Trump be able to pick it? Yeah, and do they need to go through sort of the scrutiny to make sure they're legitimate? Sure. Tulsi Gabbard's been serving in uniform for, at this point, decades. Has gone through 5 FBI clearances. I think that's enough. We know who she is. She's been around for a very long time. She is someone that I very much trust, and I believe the American people do as well.